joining in. And delighted to see you all. I'm Jean Duff, and I serve as the coordinator for the Women, Faith and Climate Network. And on behalf of the network, I'd like to welcome you today to the second in a series of collaboration workshops that the network is putting on. The goal for these collaboration workshops, the overall goal, of course, for the Women, Faith and Climate Network is to go further, faster on climate action by learning from each other about what's working and finding ways to expand through collaboration and partnership at the local level. This meeting is being recorded, as you can see on your screen, so it can be shared with others. Today we have a fantastic group of participants, and those who are joining now, please do as the others are doing and use the chat to introduce yourselves to each other. The workshop is one of a series organized by the Women, Faith and Climate Network so that members can share good environmental practices that have the potential to be scaled up through partnership. Women, Faith and Climate Network members are keen to exchange information on what's working at the local level and to collaborate with each other to expand the impact. Today's workshop focuses on the topic of mobilizing grassroots for environmental action through eco-champions. We're going to hear from speakers from the Anglican Church, from the Southern Africa region, and from the UK. Today's workshop will have 3 parts. We have 90 minutes to spend together. The first part we will have the benefit of our 3 speakers from the Anglican Church, who will briefly present examples from their own organization's work and recommendations for expanding that work. Then we will have the opportunity to exchange information with each other about other eco-champ kinds of models and discuss ways to partner to expand those good practices by meeting in small groups in breakout rooms on this Zoom platform. And that will be for a 30-minute conversation. And finally, for the last 30 minutes, we'll come back together to collect ideas for expanding eco-champ models and to plan next steps, including possibly one-to-one meetings and group meetings in the region. We're fortunate to have 3 amazing speakers today. And I think we have a slide to show you the names of the speakers. I'm going to introduce each one of them one by one. There they go. Thank you, Florine. Florine de Wolf is supporting this Zoom meeting. We're so grateful to you, Florine, for just making this all happen. Thank you. It's my pleasure to first introduce the first speaker, who is Reverend Rachel Mash, and she is the coordinator of the Anglican Communion Environmental Network. She's also the coordinator of the Green Anglicans movement, which started in Southern Africa and has now spread to 14 countries across Africa. Today, she will share stories of some of the young women eco-champs who are part of the Green Anglicans movement. And we have a lot to learn from her. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jean, and good afternoon to everybody, and wonderful to be on this forum. I'd just like to share my presentation. That's Meisie's one. We can start with Meisie if that's easier.
Okay, thanks. If that's what Jean wants us to do, I may do so. We'll hear from Jean.
Florine. Oh, no, we're back to Green Anglican. Back to
Rachel. Back to Green Anglicans. Okay, thank you. If we can just go full screen. Wonderful. So I'm going to share about 3 of our wonderful young eco-champs within the Green Anglicans movement. They're all very different. They've all got very different skills, and they bring a wonderful skills and experiences to the movement. So Mandisa is in South Africa, and she's an influencer and a youth leader. And she was really a Green Anglican before the Green Anglicans movement started, and she's always been very passionate about the environment. Next slide. So her strengths is in influencing and youth. She's a diocesan youth coordinator, And she's fantastic on social media. So she runs a lot of campaigns, for example, the Plastic Free July, and she's got us started on TikTok. She's also a green evangelist. And when the Green Anglicans movement was started first in Southern Africa, and then a group of young people went up to Kenya. And there were lots of different presentations. This was a conference of young people. And what was interesting is that there were different presentations that were made. But the only presentation that was done by a group of young people was the one on the environment. And there was Mandisa and other young people, and they were all branded with their Green Anglicans t-shirts. And it was interesting that it was almost like the t-shirt that started the movement in Kenya, because people were like, what is that t-shirt? What is Green Anglicans? Tell us more, we want to get involved. And it showed the power of branding to help to grow a movement. She's also a plastic warrior, and she took a resolution on plastic pollution to Synod, spoke brilliantly, and she's very strong on advocacy, and she attended COP28 as part of the Christian Climate Observers Program. And her strength was that she was able to take lots of pictures there, bring them back, help people to get a sense of what it is like to actually attend a United Nations conference. She's very good at linking gender with climate. She also attends a lot of gender events, very active in gender in her diocese. And she's kind of known around the province as the photographer in heels. She's very good at photography, so she gets invited to all these different events where she's able to slot in issues around the environment. And what I'd like to say about Mandisa also is that she links environment and fun. You'll always see great pictures of cleanups, young people having a great time, very creative ways of mobilizing children and young people. So that's Mandisa. Next slide. So when I asked her what motivates her and gives her energy, and she says, it's a faith journey for me, which makes me feel more in touch with the word of God. For example, Psalm 24, verse 1, the earth is the Lord's. The realization of what the world is in relation to creation, the expectation of a steward entrusted with such treasure. Also witnessing people responding positively to the message of taking care of the environment and coming up with innovative ways of eliminating carbon footprints and being able to influence change. So is it as we do one thing, we influence another person, and then that gives us the energy to keep going. Next slide. So this is just a picture of Mandisa in action, a wonderful jumping shot and the energy that she brings into the room. And so I'd like to turn to our next eco champ. So Lulama Ntuta, I call her a change agent within structures. She is somebody who's very good at understanding how an institution works, very strategic thinker, wonderful positive spirit, often gets invited to events or gets elected into positions. And this was her when she represented the Anglican Communion at the United Nations Conference on the Status of Women. Next slide. So she was the president of the Anglican Youth of Southern Africa, which shows that she gradually moved up from diocesan level to provincial level. And as I mentioned, she was the delegate at the United Commission on the Status of Women. And she now is the first vice president of the South African Council of Churches. So she's gradually being able to move her green influence into positions of power. From the beginning, she's always been very active in Green Anglicans, and meant that the provincial youth movement had this green flair because she constantly had speakers and issues around Green Anglicans. She was a rep for our province at the All Africa Council of Churches Youth Conference in Accra. And that was very interesting because it's West Africa. It was mostly young people from Nigeria and Ghana. She called together a group of young people and she told them about the Green Anglicans movement. And it was quite interesting because they were mostly male. And I think a lot of the guys in Nigeria were very surprised that we had a provincial leader who was a woman and who was able to speak so strongly and so confidently about the movement in that area. She's also an active member of our Climate Yes Summit. So the Climate Yes movement is an ecumenical movement. That means that all the different Christian denominations reps come together. And she's been very strategic in helping to grow that movement. Next slide. So I asked her, what are the key lessons for other young leaders and women leaders? She said, do not be afraid to learn new concepts and new ways of doing things. Use what you have, start where you are. Partner with organizations that are already doing the work and learn from them, and apply for opportunities available for funding and learning and exposure. Next slide. So there is Lulama, and next to her is Archbishop Thabo, and next to him is the President of South Africa. And the SACC committee recently had a meeting with him. So you can see that Lulama is gradually moving her influence to get into positions of power and influence. Next slide. So the third person I'd like to introduce you to is from Kenya. She's called Irene Sebastian Waweru. She is a tree hugger extraordinaire, but she also brings wonderful administrative gifts to the movement. Next slide. So she has three really very key roles. The first is she's the coordinator for the Anglican Communion Forest, which is a project which was launched every 10 years. There's a meeting of all the Anglican bishops around the world. And at the last meeting, we launched what is called the Communion Forest, which is the vision of Anglicans being involved in ecosystem restoration and forest protection and tree growing. And she's the coordinator for Africa as a part-time job. And then another part-time job she has is she is the coordinator of the Climate Yes Youth Ecumenical Summit. And then she also is very involved in the admin side as a volunteer of the Green Anglicans movement. So you can see that she's using her administrative skills, which is excellent in these three key areas. Next slide. So this is just a picture of where the Communion Forest has got to. It's 2 years old now, and the vision growing around the communion, different people planting, growing, ecosystem restoration. Next slide. So she says, where does her motivation come from? My life mantra of serving God and serving humanity. It's like eco-evangelism. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature, Mark 16:17. I feel called to serve God through creation stewardship in the many ways that it represents itself in my work. Tree growing, advocacy, serving fellow eco-champs in church, in my home and my daily life. Advice to others. As a woman, don't shy away. You may not have a lot of experience in this area at the beginning. The environmental space is vast, but you have certain transferable skills like writing stories, communicating, people skills, and serving people. Those skills are enough and needed in the environmental space. Everyone has room to serve. We just need to show up. Next slide. So there's Irene planting a tree. And next slide. So I like this. I was just recently at a dandelion event wearing my dandelion badge. And I saw this jacket somebody was wearing, when women thrive, the earth thrives. So just a final reflection on how can we support young women climate activists? So I think what is important is to work with partner organizations, because you'll find there's lots of different organizations that are offering training that in lots of different areas, and they're often looking for young women. Open doors for them to be heard and to represent you. You believe in them, and make sure that they're on. If you're invited to an event, always bring somebody with you. Make sure that they get a chance to speak, get their voices heard. Believe in them, follow them, and encourage them. I think it's really important that you follow them on social media, that you like what they've done, that you ask them, how did that speaking engagement go? And show that you're really proud of them, show your support in practical ways. And then form connections and networks, and that'll strengthen them and give them lots more exposure. And I think what's important is that we support the work with clear biblical, or whatever your scriptures of your faith are, underpinning. If we can provide that eco-theological basis for what they do, then it's very easy for them to take those verses and take those passages, and then they can weave them into their talks when they're giving presentations or talks, and explore different options for them, share training opportunities. You'll find they're always keen to learn and to meet with other people. And being part of a network for all of them is really important, because they get that excitement, that encouragement from being part of a broader network. And I think there's a really important truth, is that transformational change doesn't happen when individuals change. It happens when networked individuals change. So I think the power of Eco Champs is that they all have different passions, but they've been given a space. They're part of a network, and they are constantly being affirmed and encouraged and challenged, and they go from one step up to another, and they are amazing, and we are all super proud of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That is a really inspiring kickoff to our discussions today. You've given us the examples of three diverse, wonderfully dynamic, productive young women who are leaders, Eco Champ leaders, and I love the phrase on the jacket: "When women thrive, the earth thrives." Thank you so much. I think we can take a lot of really good ideas from that about ways to empower youth leaders in other contexts. So let's go now to hear from Meisie, just putting my notes up here, from Mrs. Meisie Lerulta. Meisie is the Provincial Mothers Union President in Southern Africa. She's leading over 40,000 Mothers Union members in 24 dioceses. She has served in various positions within the Mothers Union and is passionate about working to promote environmental sustainability. Meisie, please.
Thank you very much, Jane. Good afternoon to everyone on the platform, and thanks for the opportunity to share. From the Mothers Union, we're going to be sharing Mobilizing the Grassroots for Environmental Action through Eco Champions. On the next slide, we're talking to the background that led us to be where we are. We had the pleasure of having Reverend Rachel Marsh presenting to us in a provincial council meeting that was held in 2015, wherein she highlighted the importance of us looking at the dangers of using styrofoam products, the harm that it has on the environment. And from that presentation, as the Mothers strategic focus, and we started promoting awareness on the ill effects of styrofoam and banned its use, all the products in all Mothers Union activities and events. And as we continued on this next slide, talking to the establishment of environmental units, having started the issue of promoting the harm that styrofoam has on the environment, we then moved to the issue of the establishment of environmental units in all the dioceses. And this resolution was taken in August 2023, and this was in line with the fifth mark of mission to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. And that led us to the next step, which was on the next slide, that is talking to the issue of Mothers Union Eco Champions. I must indicate that this was a very important step for us with the dioceses identifying people that are passionate about the environment, that are passionate to promote choices that minimize negative effects and promote sustainability of the earth, of our environment. And I must indicate that with the 24 eco champions that we have in Southern Africa, some doing around environmental issues. Some don't. However, with the passion that they have, they are really assisting in taking this program forward. So we've had Eco Champions meeting the past year, and this was done in collaboration with the Anglican Environmental Network in Southern Africa. And that meeting addressed climate change and how the Mothers Union, working on this program, can better respond to the effects of climate change, what needs to be done. And of course, it is important that we talk about what is motivating or inspiring us. That is on the next slide. Mortality. We're inspired. If we can move to the next slide, thank you. We are motivated and inspired to work on these programs specifically to talk to the fact that eco champions who are currently women, they are motivated by the fact that while climate change impacts everyone in society, as women, we are more affected. And that is one important factor that is motivating the eco champions that we have to really have this passion to go out into their communities to empower other women and communities on how to take care of the environment. And that led us to several interventions that are currently being implemented. And that is on the next slide, as we are talking to the very first intervention, which was on empowerment and education, just to ensure that people understand what this program is all about, both in the Mothers Union, in our churches and in our communities. And that was covering issues around awareness on land, air, plastic, and water pollution, and the importance of water harvesting, given the water scarce challenges that we are experiencing in various communities, and of course, discouraging issues of felt fires. And I must indicate that this work is being done and being communicated in different platforms, media platforms, and we are aware that the Facebook and other media platforms are being used to communicate, and also talking to mothers and other gatherings to talk about these environmental issues. The next intervention is talking on the issues of reuse, reduce, and recycle, and that is being done in some of the dioceses. And I think just to share one important intervention that we have is the Good Night and God Bless waterproof sleeping bags that are being done using the plastic that would otherwise be harmful to our society. And on the next slide, we're just seeing the pictures of some of the work that is being done around environmental issues. And we move to the other intervention, which is around cleaning campaigns on the next slide. That is being done in different dioceses, and we encourage even the parishes to do that at parish level. On tree planting, which is also very important in safeguarding our environment. If we can move to the next slide on tree planting. And with that, we have several, tree planting. And on the next slide, we'll just show the number of trees that have been planted, and also to indicate that there's this plan that is currently propagating 1,000 of this plant. Just indicate that this is being done in partnership with other partners, including the government. And we also have a few pictures to follow the slide, just indicating some of this work. as it is being undertaken. The other intervention that we have is on vegetable gardening, which we are encouraging. And in many of the parishes that we have within AXA, we have parish members having these vegetable gardens and even promoting these gardening even in their communities, including in schools. And the next intervention is on food preservation. And these are various foodstuffs that are being preserved to ensure that the food remains available and there is no wastage. If we can move the slides to the food preservation. On the next slide, yes. And I think we understand the crucial role in terms of food security that the preservation of this food for use at a later stage has in our communities. And I'll then move to the aspect of capacity building, which is important to ensure that the eco-champions and even the people, on the next slide. I'm not sure whether it's from my side, the connectivity, but we're not yet there. But the capacity building, we've had a workshop in the past year, which we were fortunate to have a funder and working through the Anglican Environment Network in Southern Africa. And we're very grateful for the Green Anglican Office that was conducting this workshop for everyone. And it is in this workshop that the 24 eco-champions that we have were enabled to develop implementable plans that are currently being leading the work that they are doing in our various communities. And with that, would like to move to the next part of lessons that we have learned in the implementation of this program. The level of implementation differs in different dioceses. The journey has been easy to some and quite challenging to others, but the important thing is the passion that everyone has in the implementation. The success of the program requires buy-in and also to work with other partners to support and ensure that we go beyond the church and the communities around our churches, working with other ministries and other stakeholders that we find very important for the impact of this program to be felt in our communities. And of course, community participation is crucial, and this comes out in the importance that we have recognized of empowering communities and building relationships between the churches and communities around our churches. And in conclusion, I just want to indicate that promoting sustainability, which is on the next slide, of the environment is crucial. And as the Mothers Union, we strive to address and respond to that which threatens the stability of family life. Therefore, environmental degradation directly impacts on families, and that is why it is one of our focal programs that we have seen the importance of implementing. And also we are aware that Mothers Union strives to intervene and contribute in addressing challenges like poverty, diseases, and displacement, particularly for vulnerable groups like children. And with environmental degradation, that is bound to be a huge challenge. Hence, we need to put all our efforts in the implementation of this program. I just want to conclude by also talking to future collaborations and partnerships. On the next slide, as we are in this platform talking about the importance of the environment being a global priority. As the Mothers Union in Southern Africa, we strive to provide leadership role in bringing together other role players and networks in and outside Southern Africa as far as practically possible for the expansion of this program, and also collaborate and work with other provinces and zones, share the knowledge and best practices for a greater impact globally, because this has to be a global program for this program to be clearly impactful in our communities. And I just want to conclude on the last slide by saying that within Southern Africa, we are looking at the importance of amplifying the impact through work of our eco champions, collaborating and partnering with relevant government departments and other organizations. And of course, we need to start that by partnering with girls within the church, and also move towards ecumenical collaboration with other denominations around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Meisie. I'm struck by two things. One is the power of the church networks with women's leadership to move, to scale into the diocese, into 24 dioceses. And your emphasis on partnership, and indeed your invitation to all of us in your concluding remarks there, is exactly what we're about in this workshop. So I know that everybody participating in this call will hear your invitation and your commitment as Mothers Union to share your wisdom and to share these models. So thank you very much. I'm sure that people will be picking up on that with you directly and in the small groups. Now we will turn to our final speaker, who is Jo Chamberlain. Ms. Chamberlain is the Church of England's National Environment Officer. Her role is to help the Church of England engage with the environmental issues of the day in prayer and worship, in actions, and as part of the national conversation. She's been in the post for 5.5 years, having previously worked for Christian Aid, and before that as a speech and language therapist. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Jo.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Wonderful to hear Rachel and Maisie, and good to be able to speak to you all. So we're talking today about grassroots mobilisation, which I think is absolutely fundamental to change. But you can see from my job title that I have a bit of a national role. So I'm able to talk today from a sort of an overview perspective, a wider perspective about what's happening, rather than right down at the grassroots. And currently today in the Church of England, we have an eco champion or an environment officer in every diocese in England. But it took us a long time to get here. And so what I'm going to talk about this afternoon is our journey in the Church of England. And I definitely wouldn't be in this job if it weren't for the grassroots mobilisation that happens. In fact, this job I don't think would even exist. So what I'm going to talk about is about the top down and the bottom up, and how those two things interplay with one another. And so I'm going to have an image to help us with this, which is a tree, which I think is on the next slide. This is a beautiful tree which is in the park near where I used to live. It's a weeping beech. I love how the branches hang down. But trees start out very small, and they start with the grassroots. And when you see a tree start to grow, you can see that change is starting to happen. And then the sapling will come, and then you eventually have a small canopy. And then once you've got that happening, you have some kind of top-down activity. So that means that autumn will come and the leaves will fall and they decay and they feed the ground, and that feeds the grassroots. Maybe you'll have seeds or nuts that will fall or are carried away by birds or squirrels. So those things that fell from the top might seed some new activity, a new grassroots activity. So you might have a new tree. And as the tree grows, the canopy gets bigger, and as new trees grow, you might even end up with a whole forest. So this is my image for this afternoon, that things will grow and they'll spread, and then they'll start to nourish from the top what's happening at the bottom. I'm not a botanist, so my botany may be completely flawed, but as a metaphor, I hope you find it helpful. So I'm going to now relate this to what's been happening in the Church of England, and see if there are any ways that you can take our examples and make them work for you in your context. So in the Church of England, there's been small pockets of activity happening at grassroots level for quite a long time. We've had churches becoming eco-church, doing services, all kinds of activities. But the real change, I think, started when those grassroots used some of the levers available that helped to start this top-down action that then started nourishing more activity. And one big lever, which is available to certainly anyone in the Church of England, could find a way to pull this lever, and I suspect it's the same for you, and Rachel mentioned it in her talk. That's about getting things happening in our synods, in our General Synod. So in 2014, the General Synod of the Church of England passed a motion that said there should be a National Environment Working Group. So then there is a national body whose sole purpose is to get the church to be more environmentally active. And then shortly after that, we had another motion that said every diocese should appoint an environment officer. They didn't specify how many hours or how much they should get paid or if they should be voluntary, but that every diocese should have one. So then you would end up with someone in every diocese constantly bringing this agenda to the fore. So the grassroots people who brought the motions then have established these top-down structures which start to nurture and feed the grassroots and enable new activity to seed and grow. So we didn't get an environment officer in every diocese straight away, but every time a church or a group of churches said to the diocese, why haven't we got one? They could always remind the diocese that Synod had agreed that they should have one. So you have more strength to your argument. You have a stronger reason to say why we should have one. And then as things have gone on, the central top-down structures have introduced more things to our General Synod. So we had a debate and a motion that said we would try and get to net zero carbon by 2030. And then we established a plan for how we might get there. We also have a wonderful scheme in the UK called Eco Church, which is run by a Christian conservation charity. Sorry, not yet. Yeah, called Arosha. So we've got lots of really helpful frameworks which help guide and support our network of eco champions. So we started out with small groups being active but lobbying for change. They have established structures which set up the top-down support, which in turn enable more grassroots activity to flourish. Grassroots can struggle to keep going on their own. They need that support. But the top-down things wouldn't have even started if they hadn't been moved to action by the passionate people on the ground. So if you move to the next slide, I can show you where we're up to at the moment. So now we have lots of local grassroots activity, making things happen in local churches. We might have eco church and that sort of thing going on. Then those groups can put pressure on their diocese to do more, and the diocese put pressure on the national church to do more. We've got targets get set, like becoming net zero carbon or how many churches should become eco church. So now the diocese has a reason to act, a reason to do things. There's a bit of healthy competition between the diocese. Who's going to be first to silver? Who's going to be first to gold? So then the diocese encourage activity to happen. So they are motivated to see more action at the grassroots. So they support and offer more things to those grassroots. So those grassroots grow and they can do more stuff on the ground. And then they call for more support. So you can see how this cycle grows and grows. It doesn't work if the top-down approach is telling people what to do or saying you must do this or you must do that. But if that top-down action is about nourishing and supporting, then we see the grassroots action flourish and we see it spread. So we've got to the situation now where we do have an environment officer in every diocese. Some of them are volunteers, some of them are a vicar as well as being an environment officer, and some of them are paid to do it as their main job. Finding the money is tricky, but it definitely helps. Okay, so can we move on to the next slide? So having one person in every diocese is great. It makes a lot of difference, but one person could only support a certain amount of activity. So now our environment officers at the diocesan level are trying to grow their networks in different ways. Sometimes that will be an eco champion at deanery level that can support all the churches in a deanery. So if you click again. In Birmingham Diocese, for example, they have an eco champion in every deanery and they have a named contact in every parish. Now that's taken a lot of hard work to get there. You can only do it one at a time. So how do you make it grow? Next click. You have to find the energy. Where are your allies? Who are the people who are supporting you? Who are the people who bring that energy? And you may start only with one deanery champion. You can't find everybody all at once. And they will maybe walk with you and work with you. But if we go back to the tree metaphor, not all of the seeds necessarily come from the original tree. So it's not all on you to find all of the deanery champions or all of the parish champions. You might find your allies, and then they will have new connections and new networks. And so those seeds that you planted will grow and plant their own seeds. So one of your eco champions might have the connection to bring along the next member of your team. Okay, next click. Something that's really important is to keep nourishing and supporting the eco officers or champions. And both Maisie and Rachel mentioned this in their talks. It's all about being a peer support network where they can support one another and help one another. Part of my job is supporting the diocesan environment officers, and then in turn, the diocesan teams will support and nourish their own networks of key contacts or eco champions. Connected to other people who are trying to achieve the same thing as you makes a big difference. It makes you feel encouraged and supported. When I first started in this role, I was in the job for about 6 weeks, and then we had the lockdown for COVID. So a lot of what I did was online. And that has helped to stay and keep the networks growing because we're still connected online. We can easily get together. So we meet every 2 months in a Zoom meeting just like this to share all our information, to talk about what activities are going on, to share new initiatives. I find it really supportive and encouraging when I talk to all the people in the network. And then at a diocesan level, a lot of the diocesan environment officers will try and do something similar with their own eco champions so that they can get to know one another and support one another. There are lots of ways to bring people together, and you can do it in person when you're more local to one another. But even then, a monthly video call or a WhatsApp group where you can message each other works really well, or a Facebook group. And I think the secret of it all is that I'm not doing all the work by any means. The environment officers support one another and bring their own different experiences and their own passions and their own networks. So, does it work? Not always. Sometimes the diocese will set up a monthly video call and no one comes. Sometimes the WhatsApp groups buzz with conversation and sometimes they're silent. Some parishes are keen to have a parish environment officer and some never answer a single message. So click again. When people are struggling to grow their network, I think it's good to look higher up the tree and remind other parts of diocese that they're invested in this work too. So you can ask your diocese to support you. So our diocese are being encouraged to do the Eco Diocese scheme, which means they need to get churches over the line with the Eco Church Award. So that's a little way of putting a bit of pressure upwards on your diocese. So what can the diocese do for you? Next click. Can their comms team help you? Can they help you write monthly newsletters? Or maybe you've got the capacity to write them yourself, but if you need support, maybe your comms team can help you. Newsletters are great for sharing information, but they're so inspiring for people, making people feel encouraged when you share good news and stories and you give people ideas of what they can do themselves. Next click. What is your bishop doing for you? How much support do you get from your bishop? In my experience, if you have the backing of your senior leaders, it makes a very big difference. And when I look across England and see where things are thriving and where things are struggling, often it's whether the bishop is very keen on promoting the activity as well. So who have you got in your team who can be supporting the bishop? I was very struck by the first example in Rachel's talk and the second, how they were influencing up. That's really important. And then the next clip. Yeah, next click. It all comes back to this cycle about the tree. The leaves fall, they nourish the grassroots, and they enable more things to grow. So you have this cycle of things going round, supporting one another from the bottom, from the top, all in a mutual cycle. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joe. What a fascinating trio of presentations. And you've given us the, as you say, the overview perspective, looking at the sort of the system-wide environmental officer practice within the church and some of the mechanisms that work and don't work. And I'm really thrilled to have the diversity of these perspectives with Rachel's individual youth leaders who are so engaged in diverse and complementary ways, and Meisie's diocesan Echo Champ network through Mothers Union and its growth, and in particular, Meisie, a very, very clear invitation to collaboration across stakeholder groups in diocese and beyond. So I know we have an extraordinary group of Women, Faith and Climate Network members and allies on this call, and we will turn now to discussion in smaller groups. So Florine de Wolf, who's helping us with this whole process, is going to move us. You don't have to do anything. You are going to show up in a small group setting. We're tight on time, so we're going to keep our small group discussions now to 20 minutes. So don't be afraid to speak up quickly. We will discuss what we've heard. We will share models from our own networks and our own work relating to EcoChamp and grassroots mobilization. And we invite members of the groups to explore specific follow-up actions. You're going to be asked to designate a leader, somebody to, if it doesn't happen naturally, somebody to lead the discussion through the 2 specific questions that are put up there for everybody. They'll be in your groups, and to ask someone to take notes for a report back. So please enjoy the group discussion, short and intense though it be. It takes a minute to get into the group, so don't panic. You're going there.
Is it showing on your screen, everyone? Okay.
No, we're seeing a subset of the participants on the screen.
Okay, let me restart.
If you click open all rooms, that probably will work.
Yeah, that's what I did. That's why I
Oh.
don't understand why it's.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I've launched it.
Oh, it's coming now.
Okay. But it doesn't put you automatically in it. But I've
No, you've got
selected.
to manually assign. Have you clicked manually assign instead of automatically assign?
No, displays
No.
automatically all the participants to their breakout rooms. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Could you all choose some rooms? I'm gonna start putting people myself in, but if you are able to do it yourself, please go ahead. We are aiming around 8 to 9% per room.
Can you instruct us about how to manually assign ourselves to the group, please?
Yes, of course. On the bottom of your screen, you have breakout rooms, or you have more, and you need to click on more or in breakout rooms or breakout rooms, and it will offer you the possibility to join one. But I've already attributed half of people to the breakout room, so it should go quite fast. Jean, it might not show up on your screen because you're a co-host, which is different for you. You're on mute, Jean.
Thanks, Florine. Welcome back, everybody. I know, I'm sure, like our group, there was just tons of ideas, and it was really hard to have to cut the conversation off. But hopefully, it will have seeded good connections and good specific next steps. So we, of course, we don't have time for every group to report back. So I'm going to ask if the person who took the notes would kindly send the notes to Florine, and Florine is going to put her contact information in the chat. And if we could hear briefly, maybe from each of, there were 6 groups, right, Florine? Yeah. So if we could hear briefly, maybe a couple of key points from each group about what was suggested by way of specific next steps for collaboration, for partnership, for learning more, for whatever the work might be in your group. Who would like to start? Maybe is there somebody from group 2 who would be able to start off with a couple of key points? I mean, just really a couple of key points, please. Joyce is speaking. Were you in group 2, Joyce?
I don't know what group I was in, honestly.
Okay, well, just work away.
But anyway, one of the things that came up that was really interesting to me was like the importance of finding other groups to work with. And Rachel gave me a great idea personally about scaling up our work in South Dakota in the restoration of prairie grass. And she gave me the name of a group that is doing the same thing in another state, not too far from where I live. So that was very helpful. And then one of the other things that came up was the importance of involved in this, because they probably are more passionate about the environment than some of the older people. So those are 2 things that were significant, I think.
Great. Sister Francisca, for group 1, where you and I were both in the group, you had some very interesting points about how you might adapt this work in Ghana. Would you like to just summarize?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I was so impressed about the presentation of the Mother Union, and I am praying that going back to Ghana, I will try to get the conference involved, and also try to get to the women religious in our various communities, especially in the diocese where we are working, so that we can bring the women together and collaborating with the other churches, so that we be able to have this echo church also in Ghana. So this is what taken to my diocese and to the entire conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister. Folks from the other groups, please weigh in. This is not a shy, retiring group. I see Fiza has joined us from Pakistan. Hello, Fiza. Wonderful. So someone was about to speak and I interrupted. Please, who would like to report from the group?
I think
see as if Agnes is speaking, but she's muted.
Yeah, you're on mute, Agnes. We can't hear you.
Yes, we in our group, we said we should start with ourselves first in our own homes, so that when we go out, people will copy from us how we do it. And then we as a leader, or as yourself at your own home, start picking the things, plastics. People will follow you when they see that you like a good environment, a clean environment. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can add on what she has said. We said that this calls us for self-mindfulness. I have to be aware of where I am, to be aware of the environment that I am living in, the way it is sustaining me. So this mindfulness or self-awareness will help me to see that the environment needs my care, and then I will begin cleaning it, and when I begin, others will also be looking at me, because I become a role model. And then others also start following. And then we said that this needs a collaboration and working network. Let us start with ourselves, then the neighbor, and then the community, and then we make it a global collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kumugisha. Thank you for your contribution. I see Brigitte has raised her hand.
Yes, we were all in the same group, but we didn't have the time, the chance to find someone who notes down and who will share. So now we are all sharing, I think, Agnes and Kumugisha also. We said also that maybe it is good to have, I don't know, to have practical collaboration. For example, not everyone knows how to make a hat or a bag or a mat out of plastic. I think these practical sharings of practical issues is also very important, to find groups in your environment who know how to do that, and then to collaborate with them, and even to find new ideas together. Thank you.
Thanks, Brigitte. Who else would like to give some feedback, particularly relating to specific next steps that you might want to take? I know Sister Verna from Florida was saying some interesting things. Verna, do you want to come in?
Yes. I just like the person who spoke before, I would like to say that I would set an example, start from your own home, but I'll also try to get my Mothers Union to follow some of the different steps that were given in forming groups and inspiring the young people. That's a very important thing I didn't mention, because they're the ones who are going to carry on. Get the youth in the church and our families to join environmental groups or to form environmental groups. But that's important, starting with yourself, because that's what I'm doing right now. I recycle, I reuse, I plant a small garden, so and try not to use a lot of styrofoam and all that sort of thing. So I'm thinking that's a very important point. Begin with yourself and be a good example.
Thanks so much, Verna. And Jo has raised her hand.
So we had two very specific examples of next steps in our group. Sifo said that she has decided that the informal support network that she has going, she's going to try and put it on a more formal, official basis, so that it gets that official support. And Irene talked about documenting the work. So that might be taking photos, making videos, telling stories, writing about it. But it's important that we document what we do, one, so that we can tell other people and showcase what we've done, but also so that we have a record of everything that we've done.
Excellent. Who else has some feedback? Leslie, not to put you on the spot, but you had some pretty startling things to say.
I was just saying that it's very hard to enthuse people and to get people to come with you. And it's how to do that, really. I guess it's about getting just a core group and then trying to spread out from that. But people seem to lose interest very quickly in things like the environment. It all sounds great, but it's actually following through, I think, is the problem.
Any of the speakers want to comment on that?
Can I maybe just come in there? I think yeah, how do we get the power to keep going? As you say, people start and lose interest. I think one of the things that is important, if we look at the different eco champions, is that everybody has to follow their own passion. Sometimes I think there's so many issues being thrown at us that we can end up trying to do everything, and we feel a bit guilty. But if your passion is trees, or your passion is social media, or your passion is storytelling, or your passion is photography, or your passion is climate change, or your passion is gardening, all of those skills can be used for the environmental movement. So you don't have to be like, oh, I can't do anything, but maybe you just, you love writing stories, you can write blogs, you can use that skill, so I think to use your skill. And then in our group, when Joyce was talking about the prairie grasses, like a lot of people don't know about prairie grasses, but they are amazing. The roots of the prairie grass are as tall as a human being, if not taller. They hold so much carbon. So I'm going to connect her with one of our bishops in Kansas, she's also got a passion for prairie grasses. And she's slowly taken it, and she's now got about 7 different dioceses involved in prairie grass restoration. Other people might have thought she was crazy. What has that even got to do with being a bishop? Or why do you even care about prairie grasses? But she's followed her passion, and I mean, other people might be a plastic warrior. She's a prairie grass warrior. So I think it's important to kind of follow the little bit that is your passion, and then keep going. Find your tribe, find other people who are interested in the same thing, get into a Facebook group of people who are interested in the same thing, and then you can kind of keep building and letting it grow. But not feeling like you've got to do everything and then you end up giving up because you just feel guilty, but keep on following your passion. What is the one thing that you are passionate about? And then just keep pushing on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Who else would like to come in?
It's Meisie, if I may come in.
Please, Meisie.
Just latching on what has been shared already. I liked the issue of it has to start with us. We need to be examples. I think that is very powerful because if you're following up on what you are most passionate about, like we in South Africa, water is very expensive. And as part of what we are doing, learning to use grey water, looking at how we can reuse all this water that we're using on a daily basis and use it for our gardens. I'm just saying that given the socio-economic status that we are facing, if we are, as part of expanding this work, if we are promoting to our communities how they can use that grey water to have those small vegetable gardens in their backyards, it's a small step, but with a very huge impact if it is taken across different communities. And the important thing is we cannot go out and teach what we are not practicing ourselves. So I think the important take-home message here is it needs to start with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Maisie. Florine, could I ask you to share again the emails of our speakers in the chat? Because I know I heard from a number of people that they wish to get in touch directly with the speakers to explore specific issues. That would be great. And maybe I'll just take this opportunity to say that the recording of the plenary sessions, as well as the copies of the really excellent presentations that our speakers took the trouble to prepare, along with a summary of the meeting, drawing from the notes on specific actions and so forth. All of those materials will be available on the Women, Faith and Climate Network website in about 2 weeks, when we have had time to get that set up. You'll also find there very detailed notes from the earlier workshop on sustainable agriculture, which produced a wonderful range of specific suggestions for good practice in sustainable agriculture by women, both young and older, and also specific next steps. So please see there for that information. I see in the chat, and thank you so much, that many people have already committed or are sending their notes from the small groups to Florine, so they can be included in the report. Great. I think we'd also like to just take the opportunity to tell you about the next collaboration workshop. And I know Florine will put up in the chat, there it is on the screen. A number of you have spoken about renewable energy and solar energy. And in fact, Fiza, if you're still on the call, Fiza Farhan in Pakistan is one of the people who has organized this next workshop. Maybe you'd like to introduce it, Fiza. Is Fiza still with us? Putting her on the spot. Okay, maybe she has left us, but so the next collaboration workshop in this series will be on strengthening the nexus between women of faith and secular women-led renewable energy practices. Actually, Annetta, are you still on the call? If Annetta is on, she's one of the organizers of this also, from Brahma Kumaris. Annetta, are you on the call? No. Well, two of our speakers and organizers, co-leads, Women, Faith and Climate Network members, along with the Self-Employed Women's Association, have done wonderful work in preparing a workshop on this theme. Obviously, all of these themes are related, but the workshops are focusing on specific themes. So with that, I think we're ready to wrap up. Thank you so much thank you to our speakers for the trouble that you've taken to distill not only the key points from your experience, but also your very good recommendations for scaling up and for things that work, your thoughtful reflection on things that work about your practices. That was extremely helpful. Thank you to Florine for the juggle of the Zoom. Heart-stopping, I'm sure, as you're trying to get us into breakout groups. I'm so grateful that I didn't have to have anything to do with that. So thank you so much. Please join the network as a member. The link will be in the chat if you're not already a member. Many of you I know are. And I think we have great hope for scaling up climate action by doing more together. This whole idea of radical collaboration among those of us who are already at work is exciting, and it is endorsed today. And I'm going to turn back now to Rachel and Meisie and Joe for a last word for each of them to wrap us up. Rachel.
Thank you. I think there's a climate scientist, Catherine Hayhoe, who said this. You know, we often have this image of the environmental challenges as this enormous mountain, and we've got this big rock and we're trying to push it up and it's falling back on us and it's falling back on us. And that is the wrong image. The image that we need to have is that we have already reached the top of the mountain. And we've still got this huge burden, and it's tipping, but it is about to tip. And so at this point in history, we need every hand on deck. We need every hand pushing, because once we get that huge rock over the peak, it'll start rolling down faster and faster and faster and faster. So every hand matters. Your hand matters. Let's all get pushing on that big, big rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Maisie.
Thank you. I would like to borrow from the message that came from Rachel's presentation. When women thrive, the earth thrives. So I would like to say, let us all go out there and push this agenda to the best of our ability. Collaboration is key. Let us expand these networks to make the work felt around us and for us to have a future in our environment. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. And final word to Joe.
I think the key word for me has been about collaboration, about how we're all in this together. All of us have talked about forming networks which have strength in their diversity. So I want to encourage you to think about who you're reaching out to sideways, who you're reaching up to, who you can have influence on people who are in leadership positions. And if you're in a leadership position, who you can reach out to, who needs your support and the confidence that they will have because you are behind them. So up, down, and sideways.
Thanks so much. Thank you to our speakers. Thanks to everybody for joining and for the sharing, the very fruitful sharing in this time. Thank you so much. See you maybe in July for the next one.
Bye.